Welcome back, SMITE fans, to the SWC group stage, the qualifiers for the SMITE World Championships. And all of Season 9, even all the way back to Season 8, all of our players have been powered by our good friends over at Alienware. So make sure that you take an opportunity to go over to SMITEGame.com/Alienware to check out all the great gear that our players get to use, not only here in the studio, but also in the comfort of their own home as well, whether it be also production or us here on the desk using some of these great laptops, all of that provided by our friends at Alienware. And make sure you use code AWSMITE09 to get the best deals possible on this Alienware gear, the top-of-the-line products from Alienware. Thank you so much for Alienware for coming back in Season 9, empowering our players and us here in the studio for the SMITE Pro League. I'm J-Mac. I got Trelly joining me on the desk. We are ready to jump into our second set of the day in an elimination match at that. One of these two teams at the end of this best of three, Trelly, their tournament life is done. They pack it up, they go home.
Yeah, in situations like this, you got to look towards, the veteranship on the team and think like, hey, we've been in this situation before. We need you to perform at the best of your ability. Because you got to think the young guys are a bit nervous, right?
Definitely going to be a little shaky for some of the guys who maybe haven't been on LAN as much or haven't been in positions like this. We can take a look, though, at the bracket to see how the rest of our weekend is going to break down, because from here on out, it's either elimination and or qualifying matchups. We just watched our last of our first round matchups between Solar Scarabs and Hex Mambo. That was a 2-1 for the EU SCC powerhouse of Hex Mambo. They'll face off against the Oni Warriors tomorrow, and we'll see the Shibalba Storm and the Solar Scarabs later today. That'll be our third and final match over in there, and that'll be the first elimination of Group B. But for our first elimination match of Group A, we now bring it over to the Highland Ravens and the Valhalla Valkyries. One final best of three going to be between these two teams over in Group A to see which one gets a final chance, a last breath to try and make their run towards the qualifiers, or which one is going to be going home, which of theirs ends here and now between these squads. Will it be another SCC upset, another EU SCC upset with Highland Ravens maybe trying to find one over the Valkyries, or have we seen the Valkyries maybe bounce themselves back, kind of get their mentals back in check, and how will they perform out here today, Trelly?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think both teams need to bounce back, and that's always hard to do, especially when you're one game away from just leaving. So I imagine mentals at an all-time high, or need to be able to perform at this situation. But they both know they're in the losers bracket, right? So they both know, hey, wait, those guys lost. So I imagine probably have some confidence, at least in that regard.
We do have a moment to stand by and talk with at least one of the members of the Highland Ravens before this game does start up. We've got Connor the Soul Laner standing by with Dave.
Yeah, Connor, Soul Laner for the Highland Ravens standing here with me. And Connor, we've talked a lot about the mental of the SCC teams, the SPL teams, things like that moving forward here this weekend. Do you feel like you guys are playing with almost a sense of freedom here this weekend, right? Nothing to lose. Of course, you want to win, but maybe just doing your best to get those games. Do you feel like you're able to play a bit more mentally free against some of the SPL teams?
Yeah, we feel like we haven't really got any expectations, or like no one has expectations for us for this tournament, but we feel like we can do something.
Well, and look, against the Titans, really game 2 specifically, I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch it back. Right towards the end there, some unfortunate timing, you and Sino sort of swapping places. In a way, might give you some confidence. Could have gone to a game 3. Who knows what happens there. After seeing what happened with the Valkyries in their set yesterday, especially in a knockout match here, do you feel like you learned something from the Valkyrie set yesterday and how you feel like you might want to play against them?
Yeah, we feel like Titans are probably the best team in the group, and we should have took in a game if it weren't for the miscommunication. But so yeah, we feel like we can do something against the other teams in the group.
And how about the Valhalla Valkyries? I mean, this is a team that struggled during the year here in the SPL. But do you guys feel like Ravens specifically, there are some exploitable matchups on the other side, or do you feel like it takes a full team game, a full 5v5 to beat this SPL team?
I feel like if we get out of the early game, that's what we're worried about.
Sure.
If we get out of the early game, okay, I think we'll be fine.
Fair enough. And look, in a best of 3 knockout style of game, probably highest pressure game you and the Valkyries have both played this year. World's just around the corner. Do you feel like the team is adapting well to the weight of the game here today?
Yeah, I feel like because we're not expected to make it, so we ain't got nothing to lose, but we feel like we can do something.
In the game yesterday, we watched Aquarius lane up against Ducky a good bit. Mm-hmm. You don't have to reveal too much, but do you feel like watching matchups like that and watching how other teams play against the Valhalla Valkyries as a player, do you take away stuff from games like that? Do you watch laning phases and say, oh, well, Ducky was able to do this and find value there and maybe add that to your game?
Yeah, I feel like Ducky had kind of a rough matchup yesterday against the Alquang specifically. So, we feel like we've got something in the locker for that.
And maybe the Alquang comes back out. Well, hey, best of luck. This is going to be an exciting one. I'll let you get back with the team. We'll go back to the desk to start it off.
Well, sounds like some adaptations are being made here for the Highland Ravens. And as mentioned, a team with nothing to lose. I mean, when these SCC teams come in here, and even we were talking about, potential playoff berth for some other squads out earlier in for like Phase 3 playoffs for the SPL. When you're a bottom seed team and you know that you can't make it into the playoffs, doing anything that you can to try and play spoiler to these SPL teams and these higher seeded teams is always kind of on the mental. It means that you can play what you want to play. You don't have to feel like you've got to conform to what everybody else is doing. And both of these teams now having at least a little bit of data on the opposite one there. You heard from Kano being able to watch what Ducky had to do up against Aquarius. It means that some changes will be made over there. But they are going against the Valhalla Valkyries, a team that has had some wild upsets in the past, beating out teams like the Leviathans, the Kings, kind of running down the rankings there. So the Valkyries, you never know what they're going to come out with. I mean, yesterday we saw an Aokwang solo come out of Aquarius specifically, and I'm just going to say it popped off in the early game. I mean, that's 6-1 performance to start things off, but it was the late game is where the Valkyries started to struggle a little bit.
And I think that's my main issue. I have no issues with how Aquarius was playing. I think that Kyrmi and BennyQ maybe let the nerves get to them a little bit. They weren't performing up to the way that we usually can see from them. I think Kyrmi has been such a dynamic player for this team. Aqua, he's been stepping up no problem. I think he's been playing like he's possessed. It's ridiculous how much he's been able to hard carry some of these games away, especially that Alquang game. Turns out later on, it's a little bit rough to try and go a hybrid style Alquang build. You're either full burst or you're full tank. The hybrid, I think, kind of hurt him a bit, but still was the driving force behind that team throughout the entirety of the set. I need to see more from the younger guys, right? I think Aquarius, he's been here before. He's been on land. He's been in, world situations. I got to see more from Benny and Kyrmi. I think they had a little bit of a nervous day. I expect more from them today. I think they'll be able to step up.
And it is technically against a lower seeded team. Remember, this is the number 2 EUSCC squad facing off. So if you're just going purely off standings, maybe a bit of a better chance for them. But also maybe a bit more of a wild card. I mean, when they play against teams like the Eldritch Hounds or any of the other NASCC or even SPL teams, they know what kind of meta emerges from them. They know the kind of play styles. It's this very knockdown, drag-out style of game, constantly the quote-unquote almost arena style of play. Highland Ravens and a lot of other EUSCC teams, they don't play like that. They play these very slow games, these very calculated style of gameplays to where you're waiting 20, 25 minutes before you get a fight through there. And I think that maybe, at least for the Valkyries, where we need to see if they have done their homework and if they've kind of done that research to adapt to this team.
And I think the Valkyries like to fight early, right? When Kyrmi gets on these tankier warriors, these Erlong Shens, these Osirises, the ones that want to fight you pre-level 5, they want to get that Mannequin Scepter and start brawling. That's going to be a playstyle the Ravens can adapt to for sure, but don't want to. They're fine with sitting back until, 10 minutes, 20 minutes or so. So if the Valks want to come out the gate early, they'll definitely tell us that in picks and bans for sure.
Picks and bans for game number 1. Elimination on the line between the Valhalla Valkyries and the Highland Ravens. Will we see our first team eliminated be an SCC team, or will it be an upset with the SPL going down first in this tournament? It all comes down to this best of 3 between the Ravens and the Valks. The bans already start to roll through. No surprise seeing this Hades banned away from the Valkyries. This has been such a key component for Aquarius over in that solo lane. It's had many a games where he's been able to carry on that pick. So seeing it coupled alongside the Naja for the Highland Ravens. Meanwhile, opposite side, the Valkyries will ban away Thor and Cernunnos. Stodgy joins the mix for another jungle ban for the Highland Ravens. And I wonder where the Valkyries will go for their final pick. Ishtar's still available, and I imagine if that gets left open, that might be a snap block for the Ravens.
Yeah, certainly could be the call. I mean, it's just such a dynamic pick. You're getting lane pressure. You usually have, the better end of most 1v1 matchups, and you don't have to worry too much about ganks because you have so much ease of farm. You can really clear the wave and get out. But it looks like the Agni is going to be the bans there for the Valks, and that will leave that open. You can see Coast look a little puzzled as well. I think he said, okay, yeah, grab me Ishtar, and they're going to instantly snap block that, which means the Valks either A, had an answer to it, or B, were left no other choice. I'm assuming they think they have an answer for it.
And trying to take some comfort away from Angry with that Agni ban at the very least, but in the last 6 games that Angry has played, half of those have been Baba Yaga and only one of them has been an Agni, so not necessarily a go-to god for Angry in the mid lane. Valkyries, though, after the Ishtar, will pick up Ram and Lancelot, a very early jungle pick for Kyrmi. When we were looking at the set yesterday, Charlie, I mean, it was going to 4th, even 5th pick before we were starting to see what Kyrmi was wanting, but now knows what he wants and goes ahead and grabs it early with the Ram.
So now the question is, what is Adapting's answer back? Usually, the way the Ravens like to draft is leaving his pick for much later on. And I would not be surprised if that's the call once again. Yep, it's going to go in for the Maui and the Baba Yaga. A pick that the EU-SEC really does love in the mid lane. Got pretty easy telegraphed abilities to hit, as well as tremendous safety in the early. You're not too worried about a Lancelot pre-level 5, and definitely not until you actually group up in the jungle. And that Maui with the Ishtar pretty much guarantees you're getting lane pressure over in the duo lane. Your clear is just too solid.
Susano, Raven, some options, at least for Adapting, because the Dachi has already been banned away. Those are the 3 gods in his last 6 that he has played. The Valkyries still wondering as to maybe where their pick will go. Similar to how the Ravens typically hold their final pick for Adapting, the Valkyries have been known historically to wait for BennyQ's pick, but they're actually going to grab that 3rd. This weekend it has been a much earlier BennyQ selection for this squad. And it's going to go towards something a little bit more traditional in the Merlin this time around. How do you feel about the Merlin matchup against this Baba Yaga?
I'm a big fan of the BennyQ Merlin in any capacity, and in this case, picking it before it's able to get banned away, probably the smart call, because I think a lot of teams know that BennyQ does like to go to it. However, I mean, Baba Yaga doesn't really care, and it actually is a pretty rough matchup. If you can roll the silence on the first ability, you can just cancel out a lot of Merlin's clear, especially if he wants to go into that fire stance at level 2 like a lot of these guys do. You pretty much insta-clear the wave if you do that. However, if it gets canceled, your cooldowns are too rough, and you're never going to get online. So it really depends on how Angry decides to play it, and if he gets lucky with one of those rolls.
Well, the Valks ban out the King by taking away the last 2 of his 3 picks that he's been going. So let's see something new from Adapting.
Finally the
At
rat?
least that's something else. Ratatoskr has been something he's gone to, but hasn't really shown any favoritism towards in the last couple of rounds. Opposite side, the Ravens. Now, funny enough for me saying an Aokwang ban, which would normally be a jungle reserve one, is a targeted shot over at Aquarius in the solo lane, along with the Bellona. So let's see something new out of him as well. I think you're right to maybe highlight the fact that Ratatoskr is up. It's something that Adapting's done really well with, but haven't seen it just yet.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's Rat or it's Hunbats. He's went to Mercury in the past, but honestly, I haven't been too impressed with it as of recent. I think he lands those ults half the time, and that's not really what you want in this situation, especially when you're going home if you mess up this set. So I'm thinking, for my money, the Rat could be something he looks towards, or the Hunbats. However, I want to see what Aquarius goes to. I know that Bellona has been taken away, so that's going to be off the table. The Aokwang and the Hades also off the table. So I think the Ama could be something that they look towards, but in this situation, they want to wait to see their matchup. They want to wait to see what Kana goes to. Or they're going to switch over to an Athena. Either way, we've seen Athena played in solo and support, but I'm thinking Gamma would like to get aggressive on Athena, right? That fits his playstyle pretty well. Dash in, taunt, consistently set up for the squad.
Ooh. This is a bit of a throwback for Adapting, and a god that we don't see very often, Fenrir. Locked in now for the Highland Ravens, with now only Kana's selection to be waited for. And Fenrir into this. Fenrir up against Ram. Ram rolls and gets the cripple shot. Maybe that's a way out, but not a whole lot of other ways to kind of break this Brutalize aside from the Merlin. How do you kind of feel about the Fenrir into the current 4 that the Valkyries have drafted so far?
I mean, if you're able to find beads down, I don't think Fenrir is ever bad in the early. It's just how much he falls off late game. He essentially turns into I'm going to jump in, I'm going to ult, and then hopefully the team gets my back. But Adapting has a way of playing Fenrir to where he can still find those 1v1 situations. He can still find big damage. There is some ways to cancel the Brutalize, as you said, but you're more so picking this for, hey, that Merlin only gets 1 set of beads, and we can pick him up many times. The Athena, as long as we stun first, we can usually pick up before the Defender of Olympus gets channeled, and that can be a free pick as well. Starting off any fight up 5v4 is going to be a free win if you're able to play it correctly, so you just got to watch out for those beads, and I think Adapting, he's went to this Fenrir many times in the past. He knows exactly how he wants to pilot that pick.
Fenrir coupled with the Amaterasu, at least for the Highland Ravens. That'll round out their top. And then tier left open for the Valkyries, something that Aquarius and many of the solo laners of the SPL and the SCC, especially the EU scene, have gone to multiple times. So now we'll have the Ama versus Tyr laning matchup. So Athena will be going over towards Gamma. Now Charlie, kind of give me a rough time frame of both these compositions. Where's the Valkyries composition really at its strongest, and where's the Ravens at their peak?
Well, I think that Merlin and Baba Yaga definitely get online around similar times, but Baba is much safer. So Angry's not going to worry too much about the ganks in from Lancelot as long as he can stay back and just focus the wave. Whereas BennyQ is going to have to watch out. He's going to have to flicker all the Unchained from adapting, make sure his beads are saved as pretty much the most important resource on the map. And if that's the case, then yeah, sit back, farm, get your damage online, and that's going to be mirrored. But the Lancelot and the Fenrir are pretty much going to have to choose which lanes they want to sit, right? I mean, I think adapting more often than not is looking towards the solo lane, saying, hey, they only get one set of beads. Maybe Aquarius doesn't even go beads because he feels confident that he's going to be able to immune the Ragnarok regardless with his ultimate. So try and sit on the Tyr could be the call. It's just Tyr is very slippery and gets value out of the double defense pretty easily because you're up against a physical jungler and a physical solo laner. So just stacking all of that Fizz-D, a Glad Shield, a Breastplate could make it difficult. However, they both have that opportunity. So I'm thinking I'm not giving the edge to either one late game.
So some good options for both teams kind of through the early stages of the game. Maybe this Fenrir and Maui to kind of help out for the Highland Ravens. Opposite side, maybe this Athena to try and get things going a little bit early on, and then the Lancelot as well. So kind of putting a lot of onus maybe on the supports and the jungles to see where their rotations come through in this early stage of the game to try and build through Highland Ravens and the EU scene in general, a team that more often than not likes to scale towards the late game. That's where we saw the Valkyries fall yesterday in their second game up against the Eldritch Hounds. Went to a 45, nearly 50-minute game before that one did end up going to the SCC squad of the Eldritch Hounds. Highland Ravens with nothing to lose in this matchup here in game number 1 up against the Valkyries to see if they can start their elimination match off right by getting a game number 1 for themselves. If you are this Lancelot, if you're Kyrmi on the Valkyries, got to see a step up from him and BennyQ if the Valkyries want to find success. Game number 1, elimination on the line. Who's going to start it all right? Let's throw it with Dulcin and Mifflin.
We're officially at the heaviest weight set of SMITE we've had all year long, Miff. SMITE World Championship on the line, and it's the Highland Ravens and the Valhalla Valkyries trying to stave off elimination. I guess that's a dramatic way of wording it, SMITE World Championship on the line. More like a spot at the SMITE World Championship on the line than not the actual championship itself just yet.
A shot at attempting to get into the World Championship.
A shot at the SMITE World Championship on the line. I could have just added in one more word there and it would have been a bit more correct. But
right, start taking from the top.
We've officially reached the heaviest weight game of SMITE all year long.
Yeah.
A shot at the SMITE World Championship on the line, and it's the Highland Ravens and the Valhalla Valkyries battling it out, almost made it the whole way through, to stave off defeat. Miff, the storylines abound here in this game. Our first set of the weekend was Ravens versus Titans. Titans won 2-0, but required a base race and some chaotic shot calling at the end of Game 2, one that Kana in the pregame interview expressed Ravens felt like they could have won, at least sent it to a Game 3, and also felt like the Titans are the best team in the tournament, which speaks volumes about the Ravens and their performance. Valhalla Valkyries, very disappointing performance yesterday. Kind of get blown out in Game 1, commanding control of Game 2 against the Hounds, and then drop an 11,000 gold lead. And so I think the mental in question here for the Valhalla Valkyries. How well have they shored that up over the last 24 hours or so?
Well, looking at composition alone, I think that we've already got a blanket improvement off of everything we had seen from the Valkyries yesterday. So I think top to bottom, you've got BennyQ on a not BennyQ pick. Well, BennyQ pick in that he plays Merlin, not BennyQ in that it's something that everybody in the league's playing.
Right.
So I think that's a pretty significant improvement. Aqua back on the tier as well. Kyrmi on a pick that can bring pressure throughout the early, but similarly has a good deal of safety. So we won't see a similar performance as we'd seen from maybe the Osiris yesterday. But on the other end, Gamma in some trouble, should be okay. I'm concerned for adapting, and that's not what I thought I would say when I was worried about the Ravens or when I was thinking about what might go wrong. This Fenrir has got a whole lot of counter matchups on the other side, just so many cripples that he's going to have to deal with. Kyrmi with his ultimate, the Grand Joust, essentially invalidating Fenrir's entire kit. Gamma on the Athena just has the ability to peel off Brutalize literally every time. BennyQ's got great self-peel here. Wowy's got it too. Adapting not for now, but in maybe about 10 or so minutes, will likely struggle to find his damage.
The Highland Ravens, Myth, they are a team that throughout the year, especially since adding adapting, have diversified some of their win conditions. You see adapting on this team and you assume it's just adapting every single game. Angry has been a star for this team. VaporishCoast finds a way to make plays constantly. So there are plenty of avenues that the Ravens can explore here against the talented SPL team in the Valhalla Valkyries. And you could say the same for the Valks as well, and we talked a lot about their improvement over the course of the year yesterday while we casted their set. And so some individual players, Myth, I think that would like to see better sets today. Kyrmi, Aquarius, I got to assume if you're Aquarius, you're thinking about a 7-0 Alquang that ended up dying like 4 or 5 times in a row and didn't really get a chance towards the end of that game to make the 7-0 felt, or if he had the chance, wasn't able to do so. And Tyr also an impactful pick, a bit more standard maybe for the solo lane, but one that I think can carry a similar weight, just in a different way.
Much less susceptible to some of the shortcomings that Aqua had ran into previously. Right. You're not going to get stunned once and then immediately die on a Tyr because of the passive. You're not really easy to CC, and you're just straight up tankier as well. Displacement fits the composition of the Valhalla Valkyries, just having someone to set up for this long-form tick damage from the Merlin or bring somebody to Wowy in that backline. I think Tyr fits that style very well. Or even if you want to be a part of the dive with Kyrmi, Aqua can perform that style. So, looking elsewhere, I don't think we're going to see too much from Aqua in the early game. Tyr versus Amaterasu, not exactly a very volatile lane. Seems to me that it's just going to be about sustain and rotating out. Which one of these guys is going to get involved in the mid 3v3 or a fighter on Pyromancer or perhaps a blue buff invade? We the first we'll see of them. Unless adapting can make this rotation. Aqua's got beads though. Shouldn't be too worried.
Beads and Lawbringer. Second of those get used. First of those used, but dazzling offensive hit for the stun.
He's alive.
And the damage. The last bit, it's not there. Cxnnahh and adapting had one. It was waiting for the last tick of damage, but it never arrived. And Aquarius will live. Now, beads and ultimate down, so there is still some value. Highland Ravens had to use both of their ults. Is now potential, though, for regank for adapting. Maybe finish off the kill the second time around, but I feel like one got away from the Highland Ravens.
I think adapting just circles back the second Ragnarok's back up. It's such a simple gank every time because you have to use Lawbringer, the ultimate from Tyr, for one of the ultimates. No matter which, if it's going to be Dazzling Offensive that forces it or Ragnarok, either way, the other one will find value on the tail end. Aqua going to have to play very safe for the next couple of moments. Fortunately for him, he's very close to getting some of that physical defense stacked up. He'll double dip against his lane opponent and the jungler, so some survivability there, but certainly not out of the fire just yet. Keep your eyes on this Fenrir. He should have his on Aqua.
Worth mentioning, this time around, Gamma will have ult as well, so rotations out of lane, especially defensive, can be helpful, but I'm not sure this is where Gamma wants to be. It's Angry dropping Kyrmi for first blood.
Uh-oh.
But there's still damage from the firebolts, chasing down the Athena. One last tick, and Angry, the star mid laner, I called his name, and he stepped up 2 kills in the first 5 minutes.
I can't believe the Valkyries step up to that Scorpion. Kyrmi's too low HP to stick around, and the Highland Ravens. We talked about these Soliners, who's going to rotate first. It's Cxnnahh, and he gets involved. That Golden Blade, a little bit additional movement speed. Amaterasu's first ability just made it so easy to get involved in that fight, and it's the Highland Ravens who strike first. Some of those concerns I was talking about around adapting will be alleviated if you can find a lead. Doug, can we get a look at adapting's level order as well? Curious to see if he's maxing out the Unchained. No, it's actually the Brutalized. Yeah. Not so concerned about some of the disruption on the side of the Valkyries. The only targets I can imagine him finding consistently would likely be a post-taunt Gamma. Otherwise, for the most part, everybody else has got great answers to it, but adapting, he's found his spots, and he's found 2 quick assists.
This is now, it might be dramatic for me to say at 6.5 minutes. This is now a crazy inflection point already here in this game. The Valkyries suffer pretty difficult loss yesterday in game 2. And now they make a bad rotation to a Scorpion early in game 1. They're down about 1,000 gold. And we talked about it a lot yesterday. Not giving up, but also not tilting and trying to make plays that shouldn't be there. Adapting Won't be able to wait out the beads or the Grand Joust.
Good ult.
Cozyx gets a double pull. Wowy being chased
Watch
down
Angry.
as well. Brutalized forward. A taunt out from Gamma. Doesn't mitigate that much damage, and now Wowy left on the run. Are we tower diving? That's now the question Cozyx would like to. But Wowy backs away. Kyrmi's chased down by Angry, who's on a killing spree. And when I say the
Wait,
Valhalla
more?
Valkyries need to stabilize, they're unable to do so. Angry on a bit of a different page from Cozyx and adapting. Might not have been able to chase down Benny anyway. So, looks like purple buff, red buff got stolen, and a kill onto Kyrmi. A disastrous swing for the Valhalla Valkyries.
It is 2 small skirmishes that establish the entirety of the lead for the Ravens, but both of those skirmishes have one thing in common. It's the Valhalla Valkyries getting aggressive on the map. A greater Scorpion invade, an attempted red buff invade, and both times now, the Highland Ravens have just been there on the defense. It's just been clean from them, just waiting for some of these unforced errors, and the Valkyries have continually given them up. There aren't too many large XP disparities just yet, so it hasn't bled into the lanes where you haven't got fight back potential. Maybe one of the largest and most crippling is VaporishCoast with a full level lead now over Wowy, who had lost his beads in that engagement. Now needs to worry about some of that 1v1 potential that Ishtar just has blanket without the relic being down. But the Valkyries need to clean up some of these decision makings. Just stop getting over aggressive on the map, play more so for the neutral, find your footing, maybe even play around Benny, who hasn't been allowed to get involved in any of these fights so far. The Highland Ravens have not moved into the Valkyries side of the map. They might now with the 2K lead, but as of yet, it's been mostly reactive play from them.
Doubled the gold lead in the last couple of minutes. Kyrmi, we know, wouldn't have been thrilled with the Osiris game that he put up yesterday in Game 2. Also know probably not thrilled with the way that this game has started on the Lancelot, but there is turnaround potential. Angry, 2 levels ahead of his mid lane counterpart. He's going to rotate into the Gold Fury for the Highland Ravens. Valkyrie's not here. The Pyromancer hasn't even spawned to trade out with the Gold Fury, and the Ravens have gotten it. 3,000 gold now. We have tripled the gold lead in the last 2.5 minutes. The Highland Ravens doing so well at expanding their reach across the map right now, and why not? When you've got the leads you do, you're a level ahead in solo. You can force the Grand Joust away from Kyrmi as well. Feels like wherever this 3-0 fully stacked Book of Thoth Baba Yaga goes, the rest of the Highland Ravens will be there as well.
Yeah, Angry has received no pressure towards him and instead has
Can
just
you now?
been thriving. You could.
It's 3 levels up on Kyrmi.
Yeah, Kyrmi is the major contention point now because every time we've seen Grand Joust, it's been on disengage. A huge point for the Valhalla Valkyries draft.
Oh, he got him! Oh, it's a solo! Look at him, bottom left! Look at him cheer! What are you doing, man? He's asking Wowy, and Wowy's asking himself the same thing. It's a solo for Coast, and now it's disaster everywhere for the Valkyries. It's happening in mid, it's happening in the jungle, over in solo, and now a solo kill for VaporishCoast in the duo lane, 2 levels down as Wowy. This is terrible for the Valkyries in the first 10 minutes.
Pyromancer on the table, but not taken this time. This is absolutely wild. This is a mental crusher now.
That's what I'm saying,
for the
dude, the
Valhalla
mental.
Valkyries. How do you stick it in? It happened so fast at that. When you think of the EU SEC, it's slow, methodical, clinical play. 30 minutes will load in, and that's what you want. The Highland Ravens have flipped the script, and now it's the Valhalla Valkyries who need to figure out how to play on the back foot.
All right, could be a
He's
kill
at the
on
tower!
the Cozyx. Kyrmi under the tier 1. Cozyx lives. Oh no, the Ragnarok delivers Kyrmi to his doom. Gamma left over in mid as well. A double taunt. It looks nice, but Benny simply doesn't have the items to burn down these health bars. It's the risk of being behind. You can try to make plays, but if you roll the dice too heavily, you get further behind, you make the hill steeper, and unfortunately it's happened now in mid.
The Valkyries are playing so frustrated right now. Kyrmi's initiation with the Grand Joust there, questionable at best, and punished once more.
But now Coach just
Gamma
turns it!
He just
Coach
walked in.
just turns it! Why do we do
Gamma!
it? Why? Look at him again!
He's laughing at you. You cannot let that happen. That was another unforced error, Dave. I couldn't explain the decision-making right now. The Valhalla Valkyries, maybe it's fear of being behind. They need to make something happen. Everybody's got hero syndrome right now. Needs to make individual plays. They need to slow down.
I know, I agree. Bro, I love the Valks. It's a great team, great personalities, great players. They need to take a deep breath right now. It is frustration.
They need a tourniquet, bud. They're bleeding out.
I know. Well, game one might just be over. I mean, they're 5,000 down.
So fast.
And mentally crushed at 12 minutes. There's a lot of game one left to be played. I'm talking about taking a deep breath and regrouping yourself before a game two at this point, because the way the Valks have played here in this first game, and really, I think you gotta look to the Ravens and give them props for calling the Valks on a lot of what the Valks are trying to do here.
Everything they've attempted. Called
Agreed.
and raised.
And raised, doubled down on, and flipped.
Awful.
It is a terrible start here to game number 2 for the Valhalla Valkyries. And it's been such an enjoyable team to watch play and grow throughout the year. They've got one more shot here, one or two more here in game 1 before they got to regroup prior to a knockout, a season-ending game 2 if this continues this way.
The unfortunate truth of the circumstance is that the Valkyries need this game to slow down, but they only have 1 minute until a POI forces them to take another fight. If the Highland Ravens play it correct, they could just group up on this Primal Fury, and if they take that for themselves, Fire Giant becomes easier, the gold lead extends, the one comeback mechanic for the Valkyries, being that neutral objective, exits the map. For now, expect the Highland Ravens to slow it down. They don't necessarily need to find any picks. Instead, spend this time clearing their own jungle.
Yeah,
the
secure your own
Valkyries
farm.
can't do really a whole lot about it. Shouldn't be invading, even though we've seen plenty of attempts so far. Then group up on the Primal and ask the difficult question. For the Valkyries, there are silver linings. Benny has been able to keep his head above water pretty well.
Yep.
Goose eggs across the board. Some pretty significant power spikes hit as well. Book of Thoth done. Soul Gem finished up. And maybe we'll even be able to finish up that restored artifact before the fight starts proper. Otherwise, looking at everybody else, Gamma's incredibly squishy right now. Wowy really lacking in itemization, a full item down on Coast. Kyrmi as well. I mean, it's only 1 level down on his direct opposition, but your job as a jungler 9 times out of 10 is to jump on the enemy mid laner.
Yep.
Lancelot can't deal with Baba Yaga right now. There is no answer to Angry. His damage output is too high. He's just going to go into the home sweet home and be 4 levels up and say, hey, I win the DPS battle. So Kyrmi needs to find some farm on map. We're not worried about what Adapting's doing because he's just there to facilitate.
Yep.
He's there to burn beads. It's everybody else that's the problem.
Well, the last grain of sand is dropped from the hourglass, and the Primal Fury is respawned. This would be nice, but
Got beads.
only get the beads. Only is still a win here for what the Valkyries have gotten in game 1. So Coast, without beads, will have to use the ultimate for CC immunity.
It's not good.
Lawbringer up and over from Aquarius, who has blinking beads now. And so, the question was asked, how would the Valks respond to a Fury respawning? It's Primal this time. And it looks like everyone's showing some face. But the same timer is about to apply to the Pyromancer if the Highland Ravens choose to stick around. Gamma taunts in Cozyx with Coast over on this side of the map. Got to be careful. That's one fully completed Executioner over Wowy, who, I mean, I guess you're comparing items to items, is a Shadow Steel Shuriken behind. So Coast simply way too strong to box out with right now. Slowing down the pace. Feels better for the Valks because you're not getting further behind necessarily, but still feels like this slow, steady burn. I guess you are technically. All this, all the neutral camps that you can't contest start to add up for the Highland Ravens. You're not seeing the kills, you're not seeing the objectives, but invades, things like that, much more simple for the Highland Ravens.
And we see now how that threat of Gold Fury is really affecting the Valhalla Valkyries' map pace. Aqua left lane a full minute ago and hasn't had the opportunity to rotate back in because there is so much danger of that Fury falling. But Kana says, look, I don't need to be over there right now. I'm incredibly fast. I'll rotate over when I need to. Instead, sticks around, shoves some waves into the tower, and pushes his own individual lead even further ahead. I would like to see the Ravens get on this Fury before Pyromancer spawns regardless. I think the only thing that's slowing them down is VaporishCoast losing out on those beads. It's going to be about a minute until those are back up. But with a lead like this, you should likely be willing to fight into it regardless.
He is 3 levels up over Wowy. But, it's in the other side of the conversation where you're so far ahead, it's very unlikely that you make a catastrophic mistake starting a fight. But we've talked to a lot of pros, and sometimes when you're a bit behind and a team makes too aggressive of a play because they're a bit ahead, that's when you can start to
We're beyond a bit.
Sure, but I'm being diplomatic.
Understood.
running for office here. I don't know. I'm keeping the game intriguing at 17 minutes where the Highland Ravens.
It's not up to you. It's up to the Valks now.
Yeah, no, you're right. And the Valks have chosen to slow down. Now the Primal Fury looked at by a couple members of the Highland Ravens. Gamma will have spotted this out with his ward.
Pyro's up.
Now both objectives up at the same time for the first time this game, so the Valkyries might choose the simpler of the two options and just split the objectives. Pyromancer for one, but you gotta secure the other one. Angry is here and Angry is strong. So is Kana, and the dazzling offensive will drop at the Highland Ravens. Steal away the Pyromancer. They'll get the Primal Fury as well. And everyone but Wowy committed from the Valkyries on the Pyro. Myth, it feels like one of those games. It is just one of those games. Nothing's in your favor. In the Valhalla Valkyries, they cannot buy an objective. They cannot buy a gold lead. The Highland Ravens just getting it all.
The only silver lining now for the Valkyries is that the Ravens seem to be very trepidatious into moving into the Valkyrie side of the map. Maybe it's a bit of Pavlov's dog. You know, they've seen now what happens to the Valks on the Ravens side. They don't want to repeat that mistake.
Sure.
But the gold lead is so stifling. It's 18 minutes in, experience so favored as well. The level lead in the jungle has only extended. I think it's time. You're right to do it. Fire Giant pulled out.
Can the Valkyries make a miracle? They'll send a prayer to the heavens. Is there a reply though? No, because Kana simply melting in a 2v1 and ult over from Gamma makes a difference. But now it's adapting, gobbling up BennyQ. Kana with this first of the game, where it's been a bloodbath elsewhere.
Big whiff.
Cozyx with a zoning ult, we'll call it, doesn't matter, adapting with another. And now we have snowballed out of control. A fire giant looms. The Ravens were willing to pull it while the Valks were alive, and now two of them are dead. And the call remains simple.
The Valks had no horse in that race. You cannot step up to the Fire Giant to truly defend it. The only recourse they had was get Wowy with an ultimate range and pray that my man had the best timing on the planet. Unfortunately for the Valkyries, the Ravens figured that out quickly and shut down that one ray of hope. And now with Fire Giant and 2 dead for 10, I like this call. Trebuchet has already pushed up, grabbed some towers, even potentially a Phoenix here.
Ravens might be speed running game one right now. You got BennyQ and Wowy both up at a very similar time. Mid lane tier 2 gone. You still got 3 towers left on the map to deal with. And you know, it's the typical analysis we talk about with the first Fire Giant, but I think rings true a little bit extra here, where the gold lead is so heavy already, and there's still 3 towers to knock down. And this has just been objectives and kills and neutral farm. Now it's really going to spool up here on this first Fire Giant. Nearly 5,000 gold for Kana. Buy yourself an item and a half. Why not? This is Amaterasu. Myth upgrades the starter item and looked so strong in that last fight. I mean, it's obvious when the Valks are this far behind. But think about what we saw from the Ama. Just walked forward, zoned out Kyrmi and BennyQ, I believe, or maybe it was Wowy, one of the carries, and did not look back, did not have to consider anything else. I do not envy the positioning that the carries of the Valhalla Valkyries will have to take now that Kana's cashed in about 5,000 gold.
Yeah, I mean, he was already essentially soloing Kyrmi through Grand Joust and Defender of Olympus. Now he's got the power to back it up as well. The Valkyries backline gonna really struggle. I'm struggling to figure out what the comeback mechanic is, and I've got bird's eye view and complete knowledge of the game.
There might not be one.
They very well couldn't. They do have one thing they can lean on. Merlin is the best mage on defense.
You can send out damage, and BennyQ, as we've talked about, has stayed afloat in this game. He's just one level behind Angry, who's been on a killing spree for about 15 minutes. So if you're able to weave in a bit of damage, but the targets are so tanky.
Phoenix is just going.
BennyQ's got his hands full. Left side Phoenix working down. Gamma caught out by Angry. That's an opening kill. Aquarius has found the backline and a couple pairs of beads. It's a small win for the Valhalla Valkyries.
That's one.
As Kana burned through by BennyQ. Kyrmi dashes in as well, but Kyrmi is all alone, and that's how he'll die as Wowy and BennyQ stare down for the Highland Ravens.
Benny's still healthy, still has both relics. Damage still there. Will be difficult to get that minion wave in, but not impossible.
VaporishCoast will dodge the pullback, but Kana will not.
Good Fearless.
Aquarius shoves one back. Wowy and Benny, they've got to supply the damage here, but there's simply not enough. Aquarius buys so much space. But Kana was not going to get taken down. Now the left side Phoenix still alive. It's an ult back from Gamma.
Got it.
Maybe more drama as Gamma dashes forward. But left side Phoenix, burn down. You'll trade out your support for Bird every day of the week.
The Valkyries are just too trigger happy on defense and on offense as well. That fight starts off once more with the Highland Ravens just standing near the Phoenix line, testing the water, and Gamma says, that looks like a good taunt. Just about no taunts in the game are going to look good right now. You haven't got the damage behind you. We saw how scared Wowy was to step up, Benny as well. Just do not have the follow-up.
I don't want to bring anyone towards me right now.
Yeah, keep them away, push them back. You're doing the opposite of what we want.
You got to get behind them and taunt them the other direction.
Just get them out of the Phoenix, but that is an impossible ask of Gamma there. And
no, of course.
from here, the Valhalla Valkyries now with the most difficult lane to defend, having lost its Phoenix, need to gear up and get ready for this next Fire Giant. Honestly, you're such long shot odds at this point that I think you do start making hero plays. Have Gamma attempt to solo steal that Gold Fury. Have the rest of the Valkyries look for some split push, because team fights just are not going your way, and you especially don't want to take it in neutral territory. 1 minute left till the Fire Giant spawns, and the Highland Ravens will make quick work of it. What I had said about the previous Fire Giant still is true. The Valkyries can try and get Wowy into range and attempt to steal with that ultimate, but actually putting feet on the ground in Fire Giant Pit, death sentence for the Valhalla Valkyries.
This is, one of the craziest storylines we've followed really all weekend long so far. We only played 4 sets, and the drama has not disappointed. When the weight of the games builds up, you hope that you can get some great matchups. And the storylines have agreed with us here as well. Hex Mambo taking down an SPL squad earlier on today. And the Highland Ravens in game 1 here, not only on the verge of taking down an SPL team in the first game, but really blowing them out of the water. You know, it's an interesting, I think, thought experiment here, Myth. You know, from a competitor's point of view, you know, of course you have to try literally everything to get back into this game. No game you hand over for free to the Highland Ravens. There might be an argument to be made for just wanting to get out of this one and move on to a game 2 and reset the brain a little bit, because this one is just not gone in your favor whatsoever if you're the Valks, and that decision may be out of your hands here. Wowy and Kyrmi, they'll split push a bit on the left side of the map, but Highland Ravens with their second Fire Giant of the game at shy of 25 minutes. Group up as 5. They'll walk to the right side Bird, and they'll find all 5 Valks waiting.
Not sure how impactful Wowy could be
Aquarius
on defense here. Aqua in, but he's burning.
Talk about trigger happy. They don't wait until the team is grouped. Aquarius has to Lawbringer away, and Cxnnahh, well, dazzling offensive forward, adapting, bites
That's
down on the
ult.
Gamma, who will get out. Grand
Never
joust
mind.
forward, but Kyrmi pulled back, beads not in time, and VaporishCoast makes him pay. The right side Phoenix, you gotta seed it now. If you're the Valks, you're defending your Titan with Wowy, who's barely able to stay alive.
Gamma goes back in with the taunt. This could be a turnaround here. Kata on the chase. Where's the CC?
Oh, no. Oh, I'm watching Angry, and I'm watching Coast. They felt it all game long, but not feeling the Titan siege just yet. The opposite side Phoenixes will fall. You're waiting 25 seconds for the Lancelot to get back on the map for a defense.
Yeah, go ahead, head back towards mid, collect the wave, and use that Fire Giant to resustain for one more push. Take a peek at the relic situation for the Valhalla Valkyries. No beads on Kyrmi on respawn. No beads for Gamma either. Easy targets.
Cozyx, shove back. BennyQ, an important first pick for the Valks. It's a good start to this defense.
Too far up.
Although the defense has been going on for a minute or two, it's a good midpoint of this defense. Left side Phoenix will respawn. Fire minions pushed away, and so won't immediately get taken down. Not bad for the Valhalla Valkyries. You're effectively trading left side for right side Phoenix here in the early goings of the second FG of the game. A trade Valk's probably okay to take, but you're going to have to deal with a heavily weakened left side Bird here whenever the Highland Ravens regroup.
Yeah, Cozyx just gets a bit ahead of himself there. Steps too far forward, and the Valhalla Valkyries, who have not shied away from a single initiation this game, continue to do so. This time hitting pay dirt. Aqua able to set that one up for his squad. Doesn't even have to expend the blink. So will have the ability to step forward once more. Power spikes are starting to get hit by the Valhalla Valkyries. The inability to close out this game from the Highland Ravens might start to be an issue as the clock ticks onward. Soul Reaver now for Benny. Obshard nearly finished. This Merlin very near full strength. Wowy as well gets a bit of AoE damage in his build. That Odysseus bow could make it difficult for the Highland Ravens to utilize their blinks. The Valhalla Valkyries, they've still got a steep hill to climb, but it's getting a little bit easier every single minute.
Just about crossing the T's, dotting the I's now if you're the Highland Ravens. You've done everything correctly this game. And remember, Miff, it was the threat that we talked about at like 5.5 minutes when that first Scorpion rotation did not work out from the Valkyries. It's okay, that one didn't work out. You cannot let the rest of the game get away from you, and it's exactly what's happened. Coast sends forward his ult, but Gamma shrugs it off thanks to the bubble. And so that's actually a small little win here for the Valhalla Valkyries. Left side Phoenix, though, it's going to get burnt down just fine anyway. No real pushback from the Valks. Fire minions right, soon to be fire minions left, and a trebuchet in mid. The defensive pressure building against the Valhalla Valkyries.
30 seconds left on this Fire Giant. Keep your eyes on Adapting.
Oh, he's back there.
As he's working his way around the fight.
Everyone
Still,
has beads.
Beads are up. That Ragnarok will only just burn it.
Gamma forward, but that's not where he wants to be. Adapting with the last bit of Brutalize. Kills off the Athena, and the Ravens surge forward, and they've got plenty of damage for the Valks. In the mid lane, Phoenix, it's a rampage for Angry. Coast just 1 kill behind. This is ridiculous. It's a decimation from the Highland Ravens, and they will drop the SPL team in game 1.
That was dominant. From minute 1 to minute done, it was a clean performance from the Highland Ravens. The Valhalla Valkyries get ahead of themselves in this one. Just first Greater Scorpion invade, doesn't work, okay, not a big deal. Red buff invade afterward, probably not an opportune spot to look for your fight. And then it's still continued aggression from the Valkyries, despite finding themselves at a large deficit. The Highland Ravens, just about at no point, were put in a position where they had to push their own lead, barring the Fire Giant sieges. Up until that, it was unforced errors.
In Myth, we talked to Cxnnahh in the pregame interview, and what did he say? All we got to do is survive the early game. They did one better here. They crushed the early game. And that's something the Valks in the past, during the regular season of the SPL, had done a really good job of, was winning the early game, and then things kind of fall apart in the mid game, and the macro game starts to come into question. This is one, again, I'll make the argument. I don't know if I've got strong supporting evidence. Valk's probably happy just to get out of that one, you know, and go back and reset and mentally recharge before a game, too. Of course you want to win it.
Yeah, I mean,
but if that gets stretched out,
I would have liked, if the Valks could have found just one team fight win, you're feeling way better about it.
Sure.
But the absolute dominant fashion in which they fell, I don't think you can take anything away from it.
Yeah, I guess. No, you're right. I'm not a competitor at the highest level like these guys or like you used to be, but game number 1, it's not particularly close here, and the Highland Ravens, the number 2 seed in EU, they've come to play 1 game away. Miff, this is pretty heavy. 1 game away from sending home the Valks and guaranteeing an SEC team at Worlds. That's a lot to think about. We'll see if the Highland Ravens can get it done in game 2.
elimination on the line. The Highland Ravens strike first against the Valhalla Valkyries, taking game 1 in dominant fashion and getting that much closer to their chance to make it to the SMITE World Championship. And as we start gearing up towards the SWC and getting ready for year 10 of SMITE, we have a really big event going on. From now until January 23rd, we have the SMITE Year 10 celebration event going on. All you got to do is play 10 games of SMITE, and you start earning some free rewards. You'll get a free battle pass. That's pretty cool. Free unlimited skin choice from many different options within there. 40 free boosters, whether that be worshiper boosters, favor boosters, all kinds of stuff. And even picking 10 free gods. So make sure that you get in and play 10 games. That's all it says. You're not reading that wrong. Play 10 games and start earning some free rewards thanks to our Year 10 celebration you have from now until the 23rd of the month to make sure that you take your opportunity to grab that there. So jump on it while you still have the opportunity to do so, because it won't be gone. And that's a lot of great deals available to you there. And a lot of greatness coming out of the Highland Ravens here in game number 1, Trelly. As we sat there and we watched in the green room, we were kind of wondering, okay, well, how long is it going to take the Ravens to ramp up? The answer was about 2 minutes or so, and then they started slamming every single direction. Angry starts with a killing spree to get this game going through. Coast finds a solo kill up against Wowy. This was chaos across the board for the Ravens.
Yeah, chaos, dominance, just aggression, a lot of different words I could describe, but it didn't seem to me like the Ravens were lacking any sort of confidence. And also, let me rephrase that, because the Valks also had confidence, but they weren't able to back it up. Like, they were consistently going in. They just weren't able to translate it into anything. I saw a lot of fights. I saw a lot of overextensions where it seemed like maybe Kyrmi shouldn't have been up so far. Maybe Gamma was a bit overextended trying to peel for his team, but unfortunately as a support, you kind of have to be that far in when your team is. It just didn't seem like the Valks had answers to any of the questions that the Ravens were asking. They asked plenty of questions. Coast was absolutely popping off after that solo kill, and you could tell Wowy was not able to step back into the lane after that as well. It was just, there was no fight back. I mean, underneath the Phoenix, I believe 2 kills that BennyQ was able to find onto Cozyx, but besides that, the Valks really had no sort of answers. This was all Ravens throughout the entirety of this game.
I mean, the early game geared around Angry, who was able to pick up 3 very quickly on. Then it was very quiet from the Baba Yaga for a while, and then an explosive end to the game for the Highland Ravens. Some good pulls with this Maui by Cozyx, able to find a nice couple of landfalls throughout this game, especially around these Phoenixes to set up. Adapting on this Fenrir felt uncontested entirely. I mean, even despite all of the ways to stop this Fenrir, brutalize, adapting, still ended up maxing that one out first, was constantly going aggressive onto players like Kyrmi, who was almost always forced defensively into that Grand Joust ultimate. And with it, a 4-1 game for Coast, 5-0 for Angry, 3-0 for Adapting, and even a 1-0 for Kana out there. Only 3 deaths total for the Ravens in game number 1. So the question then goes over, maybe for the Valkyries, is what do you change in this regard? Do you swap a couple of picks around? Do you get something maybe a little bit higher priority on some of the tier lists out here? I mean, what do you do if you're the Valkyries in a situation like this, Trelly?
Well, I definitely think giving Coast Ishtar probably not the best option. Not to say that he can't do that exact amount of damage and that amount of plays on different picks. It's just Ishtar automatically means that you're probably not fighting through Wowy. You're probably just leaving him alone and rotating out, which means if Coast can get aggressive like that, he's going to find the lead. So that could be a good start. However, the main issue is that it wasn't just one person carrying the Ravens. The whole team looked so solid. The Fenrir was good, but they already banned 6 different picks from adapting that game, so he can dig much further if he needs to. I think the only thing you could take out from that draft is just, hey, we don't want to see Ishtar again, or maybe the Amaterasu. Those are the 2 things I would say they might want to remove. Besides that, I think difference in their own picks is probably the way the Valks are going.
Well, we'll have to see what changes the Valkyries do make for game number 2 as we get ready to jump into the picks and bans. 1 game away are the Highland Ravens from knocking out an SPL team and guaranteeing, Trelly, I have to stress this, if the Ravens win here, we are guaranteed at least 1 SCC team at the SMITE World Championships. If the Ravens can win out this set, the Valkyries, if they want to keep their chances alive and keep their world birth opportunity alive, they have to win 2 straight games against the Highland Ravens. And it's going to be tough after a performance like Adapting in the squad had in game number 1. As we jump into the bans, though, nothing really has changed up here. The Hades and Naja still similar to what we saw in game 1, coupled with Daji. That ends up being the 3rd ban. It's still the Thor and the Cernos from the Valkyries. Last time it was Agni, but I got to echo that sentiment. This has got to be an Ishtar ban because Coast looked too clean on that pick last game.
Yeah, I don't hate the Thor and the Cern reban here from the Valks. Again, this has got to be more changing up their own picks, right? It's just a mental game of, hey, we did a lot wrong that game. It wasn't on any one player on the side of the Ravens. This is all something that we need to change, you know, internally. I imagine that's the mindset here. The Valks just need to go for a complete redraft. I didn't hate the Merlin. I think Kyrmi on the Lancelot is one thing that I do not want to see again. He's got plenty of very solid picks. It just seemed like that game in particular, he was a little bit checked out.
Well, with the final ban by the Valks, it's the Baba Yaga. Maybe not the one that was fully expected there. Still putting some, at least, respect towards Angry. I mean, the fact that this guy is playing on ping from home and is still able to land some of these shots on Baba Yaga, not the easiest god and some of the easiest skill shots to hit. But starting off 3-0, I guess you got to take away from the hot hand as quickly as you can, but that does leave Ishtar available to the Highland Ravens. I'm surprised that this wasn't a snap block instantly for VaporishCoast. Had a great performance on it last game, got a solo kill onto Wowy, another pick onto Gamma shortly after that one in the jungle. You gotta imagine that's probably the call for the Ravens in this first pick slot. So if it does end up being the Ishtar, Charlie, what kind of priority would you like to see from the Valkyries in response?
I mean, if Coast gets Ishtar, I think that once again means that Kyrmi cannot go to duo. I think Wowy's going to be left on an island. This time he'll probably play a little bit safer. He's not going to be dashing or taking the unsafe way into lane through purple buff anymore. Isn't the end of the world. It just means you're going to have Coast probably a level up, maybe a level and a half when he rotates into team fights. If Aquarius is nice and itemized, that shouldn't be a problem. This time around, though, do you really want to let Coast run away with the game? That's the question that you have to ask yourself. Because they banned Baba, it looks like they're saying, hey, Angry was a little bit scarier, and or the fact that we couldn't even look to fight in mid through BennyQ was a little bit upsetting, so we're going to try and do that this time around. But look to play through Aquarius still. I got to agree with what Mifflin was saying yesterday about contorting his spine, doing anything in his power to make sure you can play through Aquarius. That seems to be the Valk's win condition here. I'm trying to get him on a hard carry and trying to invade any bit of blue buffs, any sort of pressure on solo side of the map, play through Aquarius. That's got to be the mindset.
So we'll have to see if the Valkyries do prioritize Aquarius' pick earlier on the draft, or do we see something similar where we went all the way into the second wave of bans before Aquarius started eating a couple of those ones out there. Remember, we have the Hades already out the gate, so that's making sure that Aquarius at least gets away from one of his potential carry picks out there, though we haven't been seeing as much Hades, at least with the SCC teams. They're not really going towards it quite like we saw for the SPL, which was almost, you know, a top pick, top ban for such a long time, but at least recognizing are the Highland Ravens that this is a power pick for Aquarius. They have taken that one out of his hands at the very least. So decisions to be made really for both these squads out here. I mean, if you're the Highland Ravens, aside from the Baba Yaga, you could just run this composition back, pick maybe an equally scaling mage in that regard, and it feels pretty okay for you. For the Valkyries, maybe a change-up, get something Benny that he can maybe get a little bit more aggressive on early. I know this might be a little bit of a stretch, but maybe we could see something like the Raw come out there. Did have a little bit of a lobby restart going through here. We'll make sure to get you guys back into the picks and bans in just a moment as soon as we can get that one back up while these teams are getting reset for that one. But I'd like to see something maybe a little more out of BennyQ. I like the Merlin as kind of what I like to call his fallback god when a lot of other popular picks are taken off the table, when the things like the Vulcan that were meta for so long are gone, when some of those priority picks are gone. Merlin a good fallback, but I want to see something aggressive maybe out of him and Kyrmi to try and get this going a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate that either. Something that BennyQ used to go to all the time back in the SCC days, like one of those assassins. I think set mid could still certainly be an option, Pele mid, those sort of things that could really throw the Ravens off their game and also make sure that you've got some incredible early pressure would definitely be the look. But I think BennyQ wants to fall back to the Merlin. That's always a pick that he's liked and feels confident on. And if he can get something with a little bit more higher priority, then he'll go to that as well. But I think I tend to agree. Letting BennyQ to sit back and sort of coast all the way until level 20 doesn't seem to be the best way to play through here. If Kyrmi's on point, he can play through Aquarius. You can certainly just let BennyQ sit back on the Merlin, but that hasn't been the case in these past couple matchups.
Well, the good news is we can jump back in to the picks and bans here right now. And don't worry, you haven't missed out on anything. We are right back through the banning phase of these teams. Remember, it was a Baba Yaga, the final ban for the Valkyries, and a snap block Ishtar for the Highland Ravens. So now here is the question for the Valkyries. What does Wowy go? Does he stick with the Ram that he had in the last game? Do we see maybe a changeup of the Hunter? In fact, maybe an extra question is, do you even need to lock the ROM right now? Or would you rather maybe see something else picked up in that place instead?
No, you definitely don't have to pick the Rama here, but you better be picking it top 3 if that's what Wowy wants. He's got some other options as well. I still think Cupid is fine. It's one of those picks that Ishtar doesn't love, but late game is going to have a good time. It looks like one to prioritize that duo lane is going to be the Maui, and the Rama is being hovered. I don't see why they wouldn't lock it in unless they're trying to grab something with more priority. For example, that Alquang, they might want to take it away from Adapting while also giving it over to Aquarius. But it looks like not something Adapting's looking for, and more particular, they want to grab that Rama for themselves. That is some good pressure, though. Maui and Rama has some good, solid early clear. Ishtar still does match it, depending on who the Ravens are going to look for in that support role for Cozyx. But it looks like they can at least brawl back, and I think that's a smart call.
Well, it will be a Bellona pick, but it's not going to be for Aquarius. It's going to be for the Highland Ravens this time around. Cxnnahh going to immediately take one of Aquarius' picks away, and that now opens up the question of, do we even kind of see the Alquang come from Aquarius? I mean, you look back to what he was facing into yesterday, it was a Hercules. Hercules doesn't really deal with the dragons too well. I mean, you push Alquang away, and then what does he do? He teleports right back to you and just keeps smacking you with it. Bellona maybe a little bit more counterplay in that regard. We won't see at least the Alquang for Aquarius as Tyr gets locked in for a top 3 of the Valhalla Valkyries. Do you feel that this top 3 is maybe a better start for the Valkyries to face off against the Ravens early on?
I mean, all that's changed up is the Maui, so I don't think so. I still love Aquarius on the tier. That's not going to be a problem, but I never had a problem with that to begin with. As long as Wowy plays a bit safer, that's not going to be an issue. I'm still concerned about what Kyrmi is going to go to try and deal with Adapting, and what BennyQ is going to sit back on and try and carry late game with. So we'll have to see if any sort of bans come through to stop that. And the Ravens are going to take away the Lancelot. In my mind, Kyrmi has a pretty safe bet just to go to the Osiris. It's just if you're going late game and you're expecting this to go 40+ minutes, Osiris has a very serious fall off. He's got great early, but once you get to level 20 and you get full build, everyone else sort of starts outscaling you. So if that's going to be the call, you better be putting BennyQ on something that can pick up the slack. The way that Aquarius has been playing the tier, though, their dive should be on point. I mean, even from that far behind, I was seeing Aqua get some double fearlesses, pull some beads, and still get out safely. You got to try and dive with Aquarius, so that's got to be the game plan.
So what will the Valkyries draft to go alongside Aquarius on the tier? The Maui, some great ranged initiation for the Valks to start things out, gives Gamma something a little safe in that regard. But as the bans roll through, Lancelot Cabrakan banned away. The Cabrakan, a shot directly, maybe over at the solo lane or even at the jungle as a possibility, I guess, to take away from Kyrmi. Meanwhile, Fenrir and the Terra banned away by the Valks. And Tyr, that's been hovered.
That was a Cthulhu mid they were thinking about.
I don't know. I was thinking maybe they were thinking like Tyr jungle for a moment there and throwing the Cthulhu, but won't have to worry about that for now. It will be the Susano going alongside the Tyr to get something that Kyrmi can get a little bit of extra damage on more than anything.
Yeah, I'm not 100% convinced that it's not BennyQ on the Susano mid, just trying something new on elimination time, because I'm 90% sure they were thinking about Cthulhu mid, and Sharks talked them out of it. So that still could be a BennyQ pick. I'll wait till I see the last grab. However, the Ravens still have that option to grab the Robin. That was not taken away from Adapting this time. It's a pick that he loves to go to and has a good matchup into the Susano in the early. As long as you're able to use that overhead kick or the ultimate to just juke out the Typhoon, you're usually winning that 1v1 trade until level 20 when Susano just has incredible burst damage with the Hydras procs. Either way, Adapting has options here, and probably feels a lot better seeing that he has a lot more of his God pool not banned out. With that being said, though, what are they going to grab for support? They're up against Maui and Rama. Time and time again, they've been getting good pressure throughout Coast on the Ishtar, so you actually have a lot more options to go to. With the Terror being banned away, you lose one of those strong picks, but I feel like you still have, you know, the Fafnir could be an example of something that would get you some decent pressure towards these objectives. Not the best pick available at this point because you don't have too many auto attackers so far, depending on what the Adapting wants to go to. Could be something to look for.
Athena hovered, as well as Hun Batz. This is something that we've seen Adapting go to multiple times in the past. We get a lot of extra CC to this team. He's going to bounce back and forth a little bit. The Athena still at least a consistent hover for the Ravens. That gets you your very easy linear style initiation. You dash in, you taunt whoever, and you hope that they don't have beads, or if they do, that you burn them. You wait 14, 15 seconds, and you go back and do it all over again. A lather, rinse, repeat. to maybe set up for some easy beads for this Hun Batz to
It's
punish
time
on.
to turn this
It
battle
will be
in
Athena
our
and
favor.
Hun Batz locked in for the top 5 of the Ravens. The Valkyries now have one option left. Is this going to be a BennyQ Susano, or is this going to be for Kyrmi? We'll hopefully find out with this final one. And it will be Susano for Kyrmi, Persephone for BennyQ. This did not look very good in the first game the Valkyries played it in their last set. I'm not sure how I feel about it in this one, Trelly.
Well, there is one benefit to the Persephone in this matchup, and that's that you're not up against the CC immune jungler in the Hun Batz. So you can use that Grasp of Death to immune the Fear No Evil while also putting adapting in place, and he gets stuck. He has to break his way out. That is a good part of the matchup. Not going to say Persephone's a great grab here. She does have this issue where she's got a leap and then she's stuck, and I think the Ravens can force that leap extremely easy with Angry. It's pretty much just Flame Wave into a stun. BennyQ's probably beadsing and jumping away, and after that, Adapting gets the blink in, or let Cxnnahh jump in. I think Bellona also has a pretty good opportunity to slow that out. However, still a lot of damage, and you can tell BennyQ's went to this pick time and time again. He's well aware his season ends if this game ends, and this is what he goes to. You got to imagine he's feeling confident.
There was a lot of questions on this Valkyries composition coming through here, trying to face off against the Ravens. The Valkyries are now one game away from being eliminated from not only the SWC qualifiers, this group stage, but also from losing their chance to go to the SMITE World Championships. A win here from the Highland Ravens guarantees at minimum one SCC team that would make it to the SMITE World Championships. Trelly, is this a composition for the Ravens that can put that upset onto the Valkyries, that can send them one step closer to the SWC?
100%. I mean, the Ravens have everything they want. I think that getting Coast Ishtar already put you off to a great start. Adapting was not as banned out as he was in the previous game. He gets his Hun Batz, and you have plenty of beads burn with the Agni and the Athena. Last game, Agni was banned in top 3, and this time Angry got it as well. So I would argue the Ravens got exactly what they wanted. However, the Valks looks like they were also cooking up something. They were able to grab Aquarius on the tier once again, possibly looking to play through the solo lane a bit more. The real question is, can you keep BennyQ alive on the Persephone? And in past, they have not been able to do that. And it doesn't look too promising. But again, BennyQ's a confident guy, and he knew his season ends at the end of this game if he loses, and he went to Persephone still. I got to imagine he had something going for him, right?
There's got to be some kind of strength in the mental. I mean, you look at the last time he played it, it was 1-4-2 up against the Hounds. Can BennyQ on the Persephone, can the Valhalla Valkyries keep their chances alive at the SWC, or the Ravens gonna knock them out here? It's game number 2 with Dulcin and Mifflin.
The Highland Ravens have all the momentum coming into game 2, and it's the Valhalla Valkyries trying to keep their year, keep their SPL season alive. But they've got to win 2 straight. In Miff, I'm sure there will be some discourse around this mid lane pick. We're going to have hindsight in about 20 to 30 minutes if we get an average length game of Smite here on just how this Persephone looked. But got to be something to be said, just like the Death said, where BennyQ back against the wall, not only in the set, but your year, your SPL, your Smite Pro year is on the line. You choose Persephone. Himself, the rest of the team, this is their best shot given the way the picks and bans went, and they're going to play it with confidence.
I'm not going to speak to the value of the pick just yet. Instead, I will speak to the absolute trust his teammates must have in him in a situation like this. Because from personal experience, I've had teammates in the past tell me, look, today I want to play this, and it's an important game. And I've hard blocked situations like that. And Persephone would find herself in that column of pick that you just don't necessarily trust. So hard to execute on, incredibly unsafe into a composition that's got pretty strong dive on the Highland Ravens. But the Valhalla Valkyries said they're going to let them cook. Now when we talk about Persephone and her strengths, she'll have a bit of an easier time as opposed to previously. Last time we had seen it locked in, there were structures on the enemy team that could block out that Grasp of Death. This time it would only be friendly fire. The landfall from Gamma, the only thing you really need to be concerned about. Otherwise, lack of CC immunity for adapting means that you can find pretty easy targets there. If a VaporishCoast is initiating fights with his ultimate, which so often Ishtar does, could be another pretty decent target for this Persephone as well.
Gamma has been relentlessly run at by both Cozyx and VaporishCoast since stealing away the purple buff. Now it's not all going to come down to BennyQ. Got to look elsewhere on the map. My eyes go to Kyrmi. Picks up Susano. A stylish playmaking jungle pick in a must-win game 2. Careful Gamma. Unable to steal away the interceptor. That'll go to the Ravens. Kyrmi needs to see one go in here against the Highland Ravens. Hasn't been his best event. The Valhalla Valkyries fall yesterday, 0-2. Now 3 straight games against SEC opponents the Valks have lost, and I think Susano also carries with it a bit of weight.
Yeah, I think that Susano's got some great matchups here, though. The ability to drop the slipstream onto Angry and follow the dash, or even initiate elsewhere, could make it easy for Kyrmi to find some early kills. We'll likely be waiting on Typhoon before we see him get aggressive, but as far as power curve of these two junglers, Susano should be able to outpace Hunbots a bit. Fear No Evil, of course, an incredibly strong tool, but when you compare the DPS or potential DPS of these two, Susano gets a bit more lethal a bit earlier on. So I'll be keeping my eyes on Kyrmi and where he decides to put that aggression. Ishtar, a phenomenal target, great at locking her down. Agni as well, so mid and duo for the most part for Kyrmi. Kana, sure, on the Bellona you can interrupt the bludgeon, but still super difficult to shut down that God landing phase.
All right, Cozyx has just been obnoxious in the first handful of minutes of this game. Hasn't resulted in any kills, but still a mental game. You're applying pressure to Gamma. Just now forces BennyQ to think twice about using confirmation around the red buff, burning health bars, burning potions. Gamma now in lane at half HP, has med, but no more pots where Cozyx still has 1. So those are the types of small battles early in the game that can tilt things just one level or the other. Now, Angry really impressed me last game, Myth. I know, rotated into a lot of fights and the Baba Yaga really got things going, but truly became a win condition of game number 1 pretty early on there, with 3 or so kills dropping. I think Agni for Angry all year long has been a fantastic kind of next pick up if his first option ends up getting taken away, and should have decent time finding some range poke damage. Coast will as well. If I'm looking at the other carry, I really like Coast getting back to this Ishtar.
Yeah, just an aggressive pick for an incredibly aggressive player. Was able to get the better end of Wowy in the previous match, and Ishtar has the potential to do so once more. Whether or not rotations come his way, I think, could dictate the pace of game for VaporishCoast, be it adapting or Kyrmi, whichever the two decide to show up first, because Wowy's got a bit more safety this time around. Just the ability to head up into the air, should be able to deal with some of that pressure from Ishtar. Immune the ultimate, won't necessarily ever have to deal with that stun either. Ishtar will struggle to burn those beads on her own. But if you want burnt beads, adapting can do it every single time, and he can start doing it just now. Ticks over to level 5. Fear No Evil available, and some decent targets to start looking towards. Kyrmi in particular is my primary concern. If you slam him with Fear No Evil and even one other person is nearby, he has no answer. Susano has no inherent CC immunity in the kit, and is elected to pick up an aggressive relic in the first slot, Blink, for himself. If he's the target of aggression, he'll have a hard time surviving.
But can't let that slow you down from trying to make plays early on. You're balanced right on that knife edge. Because so often we talk about, you know, game 2s in sets, game 3s, and best of 3s, and how teams will slow things down. They'll become a bit more risk averse. This is the biggest game 2 and what could be biggest game 3 of the year, of their career so far for the Valhalla Valkyries. So I imagine finding that balance between not making the mistakes that snowballed out of control in game 1, but also not allowing the Highland Ravens to simply just neutral farm their way to a gold lead as well, has just got to be such a thin line to toe. But the Valks, you know, they made their identity. Think about how they qualified to the SPL at the beginning of 2022. Honestly, about, what, 10 months ago, something like that? I don't know.
Something like that.
Time is all blended together.
It's a flat circle.
Remember, it was still their kind of crazy, some unique picks, crazy play styles. They've meshed in with the SPL and their strategy and their meta here recently, but their team identity was built around being aggressive, and I don't think you want to shy too far away from that if it's what's worked for you in the past.
But that aggression needs to be well placed. And
Sure.
as of now,
Spearheaded.
you haven't exactly got the best places to place that aggression. Wowy's stuck in his tower, taking a ton of poke up against VaporishCoast. You've got a Persephone in mid. I don't necessarily trust that at this portion of the game. Looks like dual lane will be the target, though. Kyrmi makes his rotation. Could lock down an Athena here.
Could. Cozyx will dash away. You do get ult off of VaporishCoast, but Coast will hold on to the beads. As Gamma attempted to island pull back the Ishtar. Coast is feeling himself something fierce. Why not? After game 1, you solo Wowy once and flip around a Tauntaun from Gamma. Just a couple of moments after that, you could see in the player cam.
It's on a ward.
In game number 1, that Coast was feeling just fine, and clearly now exerting still even more pressure when left alone in lane with Wowy. So adapting's over on the right side of the map. The Hunbat's considering a bit of pressure towards Aquarius. Won't be there though, and very simple blue buff pickups now for both the solos. Mid lanes have had their red buffs uninterrupted. It's really only been pressure over here on left, over by the purple buff. Bit of a coin flip and one that lands there for the Highland Ravens. So, a small win, the smallest we've seen for the Ravens here in the first 7 or so minutes of the game. The first big invade.
So let's evaluate this slow pace and how it affects both of these team compositions. I love the Highland Ravens team fight in the late game. It's very linear. You've got Cozyx initiating the fight with taunt. You've got great beads burning capacity from adapting and angry with that long-range artillery damage. Love every
This could
bit
be
of
it. This could be it. It's a double taunt from Cozyx. It's a massive
So fast!
ult! Oh my god, it's perfect! You can't write it up any better!
Can't they gold?
A taunt, a fear no evil, a stun, an ult from Coast, and 2 kills in the blink of an eye to the Highland Ravens. It is not how the Valkyries wanted to start this game. A must-win game. And BennyQ barely dodges out the third. Miracle start for the Highland Ravens, and the setup, the communication, it's clean. Well, they're
Maybe
going.
more. Cxnnahh, he's in the tower. Ultimate in. Does get the beads off of Benny and will spell the end of that engagement. A phenomenal start for the Highland Ravens, and you couldn't write it better. Fear no evil hits 2. Which 2? The only 2 without beads.
Yep.
Kyrmi and Gamma just eviscerated on the map. Maybe could have been an opportunity for the Ravens to look towards the Gold Fury, but why risk it when you've already taken so much? The Valkyries, not the start you want to see.
Aquarius in a 3v1 now. His bead's gone. Lawbringer will get used as well, but adapting is teleported over the wall. Doesn't have ultimate.
That was cool, though.
Was really neat. Gives you the idea that he might have gone in, but no fear, no evil, and maybe not enough damage from Cxnnahh. So let's return to the conversation now, Myth, for the 4th game in a row for the Valks here. You suffer an early jungle skirmish defeat. You can't, 1, roll over, but 2, you can't get so aggressive now that you then hand even further jungle skirmish defeats over to the Highland Ravens. It is a risk of falling into the same trap that you did in game 1.
Fortunately for the Valkyries, gold still largely even at this point. Experience leads,
But
not
this is how it
completely out of
started in
control.
game
I mean,
1.
Journey
That's
of
how it
1,000
started in game 1.
steps. Always going to start with 1.
You're right.
But I do like
how
the
game 1 against the
disengage.
Hound started.
Oh, no.
This is what I'm saying. We've had the
It's a
same
multi-set.
We've had the same conversation in all but that game 2 against the Hounds. It's a scrap over the Greater Scorpion here, but this one will fizzle out.
So, the Valkyries, I think, can at least lean on the disengaged nature of their composition. If you're not going to start the fight with Grasp of Death, you can end the fight with Grasp of Death. Throw it at a wall near you. Nobody's able to walk through it. You're going to have to deal with it first. Gamma can use his own ultimate for disengage. It's on the Highland Ravens, I think, if the Valhalla Valkyries play it properly, to extend their own lead. What we had seen in game 1 was the Valkyries had essentially handed over a 5,000, 6,000 gold lead before they slowed down their own pace.
Right.
If the Valkyries address it now, the Highland Ravens in the past, and even in the regular season, have struggled to push their leads. I think the Valkyries need to put them into that position.
Adapting, ganked by Kyrmi here, a fear no evil. Disengages to fight a bit, but adapting is live house. He's still alive, he's in the grasp of death, and he gets out. I guess the Valks just didn't have enough. Then adapting somehow gets out, and actually Kyrmi and Gamma took a decent bit of damage in that fight as well. Open up the door for Cxnnahh to proxy out a wave over on the right side of the map. though, cutting their losses for the Valhalla Valkyries.
Whoa.
But if you cut them
They're backing.
too quickly, the Gold Fury
On both
and
sides?
the Pyromancer pulled by the
Certainly not.
Ravens. What a call. You normally split, but now you're taking both. Pyromancer
I'm going to throw up.
should get secured, but caught on angry, they've dropped it. They've reset it. Gold Fury at least to the Ravens. That is a ridiculous call, and one with a bit more vision likely works out for the Ravens. They definitely could have secured that, but at least get the Gold Fury and a 3.6K gold lead.
So let's answer some small questions before we address the large ones. How does Adapting live? How does Cxnnahh live
They need
in a
this
situation
one.
like
They
this?
need this one.
Gotta get them.
Valks need it. Aquarius
Good
will get
fearless.
it. And Adapting up and over the wall. It could have been a second for Aquarius. Cozyx is here. That'll be a taunt and a traded out kill. But at least the Valkyries have struck pay dirt early in one of these games, somewhat,
Oh
in the
my.
early mid-game. But Coast, who has already soloed Wowy once, now with Interceptor, steals away Purple, shoves Wowy back once more. It's a 2-level lead for Coast, by the way, over in duo. 2-level lead for Adapting the king out of the jungle, leading the charge for his team elsewhere on the map.
Dave, they're not even giving me time to talk about how hard they're winning. The Highland Ravens have just made it happen on the map time and time again. Fortunately, Aqua sees one go in early in this game, and I think that's massive, not only for the game state, but the Valhalla Valkyries for their mental. To be able to pick up a kill before the 25-minute mark has got to get something rolling for this team. But what I was going to say is, one, Adapting lives that early skirmish with that Grasp of Death with a phenomenal usage of Defender of Olympus. Cozyx just immunes everything for his jungler, and from there, the disengage to Gold Fury realizing they had found the TKO on 2 members of the Valkyries. Just great. And even in splitting the map, sure, they don't take the Pyromancer, but they hedge their bets. If the Valkyries show up to gold, reset that, you get Pyro. If they show up to Pyro, you get gold, and the Ravens high roll.
Simply been an outpacing by the Highland Ravens. This fight
Perfect.
could be back-breaking for BennyQ it is. Angry, plus 2 more over in mid. We'll finally deal with this Persephone and how level gap starting to build up over in the mid lane as well. You can feel, Myth, the wind starting to build. Gray clouds forming over the horizon for the Valhalla Valkyries as the waters get rough. And the Highland Ravens continuing their long march forward towards the SMITE World Championship and what could be a Game 2 win here at Tier 2, or Tier 1 rather, in mid under pressure. Cozyx uses the beads, avoids the knockup from the Typhoon. Aquarius has got to be careful here. Mid lane Tier 1 lives to fight another day. I'm not sure the Pyromancer will, though Kyrmi could be in range to steal it away. Valks could really use this one. They won't get it. Triple pull from Gamma.
Hello?
But Kyrmi with it all to do. Unable to do it. Adapting. Saves the life of his teammates. Gamma
Nice shot.
threads the needle and trades out at least one. It's a fantastic setup there from Gamma. Just needed a bit more damage.
The damage wasn't there. Kyrmi had used Typhoon just previously trying to defend his own blue buff, and in the entire time that Pyromancer is falling, Adapting wasn't in the engagement. He was pressuring the Tier 1 tower in mid. Take your eyes there. A stiff breeze knocks that one down. Same for the solo lane tower as well. The Highland Ravens have got plenty of gold to collect on the map, and plenty of gold in their coffers at that. The Valhalla Valkyries, 14, 15 minutes in. Dave, this is the exact same position as Game 1.
That's what I'm saying, bro. We have had the same
Time's a
conversation.
flat circle.
We've had the same conversation in 3 of the 4 games for the Valks here so far this weekend. And 2 of those 3.
If this pace continues, it'll be the last time we have this conversation.
You're right. And what a statement that would be. It'd be a forgettable weekend for the Valhalla Valkyries. Team that not too long ago was hashtags Valks to 6thing towards the end of Phase 3 of the SMITE Pro League.
Feels like a lifetime.
Feels like a while ago. And now disaster is struck, but really, again, you have to shift focus to the Highland Ravens and what they've done so well. They have outpaced the Valhalla Valkyries. They have not allowed the Valks to make any statements, to ask any questions. It's been adapting heavily in this game. All 5 affected kills on the Hun Batz. He's been everywhere that the Valks have been. And he's made an impact every single time. Now that the Pyromancer is dropped, though, it'll be the Gold Fury, this time Oni Fury, in just about 30 seconds. And Myth, you might need to be getting ready to ask the same question. In 24 seconds, Valks are going to be forced to respond or forced to let the Oni Fury drop.
Previously, the Highland Ravens in this exact same position in game 1 were a bit slow to push into the Fury.
You're right.
Weren't quite able to find the footing they needed. But this time around, the lead stifling, the AoE CC should simplify a situation like this. Valkyries have got vision, Ravens unconcerned.
Oni Fury will start to burn. Gamma and Wowy, they are close by. Remember, there are Ram snipes in this game. We have seen crazier things than a Ram steal once or twice. So Wowy on that side of the map is important. Aquarius
Great
blinks
taunt.
in, he's alone. Cozyx eats the grasp of death. The Valks will pull back in. The support, but no, Defender of Olympus is gonna send Cozyx right forward with adapting.
Beats?
Who's awaiting, does not have fear, no evil. Aquarius with the Lawbringer out. And an auto or two finishes off this tower. Tense moments, a needed disengage from the Valhalla Valkyries.
Tier 1 will fall. Where will the Ravens fall back? Gotta assume it's the Oni Fury here. He had found a couple of TKOs. Cozyx, though, a bit too low HP after that skirmish. Will reset himself. Gamma losing the beads could be significant. Fortunately has Magi's, but not for 40 seconds. The Highland Ravens can get a Fear No Evil or a taunt onto him. Not exactly tanky just yet is this Maui. But I like this from the Valkyries. Try and catch the Ravens as they move back in towards the Fury, even potentially sneak it away.
God, I mean, you just have to make an aggressive play. But again, that's the fallacy of being behind. You roll the dice too heavily. Oni Fury confirmed by the Valks. But what are you going to trade out? Looks like just Gamma for now. At the moment, feels okay. His adapting might be able to chase down BennyQ, who has beads, has Aegis, uses both, and there's a Fear No Evil about to come back up, not needed. And now it's 2 kills for the Ravens in exchange for the Oni Fury. They still got a bit of map to play for.
I'm thinking Fire Giant immediately. You got 20 seconds on Gamma respawn. Nobody took damage from the Highland Ravens. Every bit of damage lands into the back of the Valkyries as they retreat towards their own side of the map. Now the Ravens pull the fire. Aqua nearby. Kyrmi could rotate in without ult. You have to go in. You cannot let this go down.
Aquarius with Lawbringer, with Fearless, with a heal.
You have to try.
Will back away. The Highland Ravens get Fire Giant on everyone. And just like we've talked about against the Eldritch Hounds in Game 1, against the Highland Ravens in Game 1, and again here in Game 2, a small lead has become big against the Valhalla Valkyries, and it has grown, and a Fire Giant for everyone. And
Where's he
Kyrmi
going?
goes forward, and a jet stream finds no target. 0-3 now for the jungler, the Valhalla Valkyries, and an easier time on the push for the Highland Ravens.
The Ravens are just a roaming death ball at this point. Any 1v1 that comes anybody's way is won by the Ravens. 2v1s, 3v3s, doesn't matter. The Highland Ravens have just got that level of an advantage. I like this. Cxnnahh acting as solo agent can distract even just Aqua, who's really the only threat on the Valkyries right now. Could create space for the rest of the Ravens to push elsewhere. Instead, it's a Pyromancer. Cross your T's, dot your I's, collect your golden experience before you push into enemy territory. The Valhalla Valkyries, they haven't got the same silver linings they did in Game 1. Persephone has been quiet so far. Haven't seen just about anything from her. Don't expect a difference on the Phoenix defense or the Tier 2 defense. Merlin, much better suited for situations like this. Instead, your hero players, the ones that can make the difference for the Valkyries, Kyrmi, Aqua, Gamma, Wowy. I'm looking at everybody else. These massive displacement abilities like Landfall can't be wasted like that.
Was used, didn't do anything. Wowy now being chased down by VaporishCoast, who is hooked in, but again, I'm not sure that's where you want Coast. A Typhoon, what does it get? It gets Kyrmi death! As Coast has flipped it! And now it's Aquarius with the Lawbringer out! The left side Phoenix needs to be the target. Still a couple towers on the map. Kyrmi gone for 35, and the Highland Ravens, simple on the left side burn. It's disjointed from the Valks, and it's called by the Ravens.
The ultimate placements by Cozyx have been perfect. Every single time finds that one target the Valkyries think they could take down and just gives them infinitely more protections. And now the Highland Ravens have done the hard part. The most difficult Phoenix to siege, the left, taken off the map.
Oh, Aquarius goes in. That's decent. Some damage from the Valkyries. Might push back the Highland Ravens.
It's a lot of damage.
Adapting, still chasing down Gamma. Angry, half HP, so is Cxnnahh. You can tell, a deep breath now for the Highland Ravens. Remember, this does not get them a spot at the SMITE World Championships, but moves them into one best of 5 at the end of the weekend for a spot at the SMITE World Championships. A win here guarantees an SCC team from this group, whether it's the Ravens, whether it's the Hounds, going to Worlds, or the Hounds could win later on. It'd be Ravens versus Titans, who knows? One of these two SEC teams would be guaranteed a spot if the Ravens close out here in Game 2, and what a story that would be. An unfortunate weekend so far for the Valks, but the Highland Ravens, with 45 left on the Fire Giant, don't need to do too much here, Mifflin, but another tower, maybe one more siege, likely just the tower can make life difficult for the Valkyries.
Grab this tier 2, grab the other with the minion wave pushed up already. Only 30 seconds left on the Fire Giant power play. So the Valhalla Valkyries will watch from a distance as the gold lead and experience continues to grow. Only one more, waiting for level 20 of the carries of the Highland Ravens. It can't be that far off. A step up from the 5 stack of the Valhalla Valkyries.
Whoa.
Dangerous.
Cozyx forward. Gamma has bubble, does not have beads. Adapting, still close by. Sends a Fear No Evil to Kyrmi. Gets ticked by the Fear at the end. Adapting 4 levels ahead. Kyrmi, you don't want this fight because you're delivering Cozyx to your doorstep.
What?
Kyrmi dropped by Angry, and now it's a landfall from Gamma. This might be it. The Highland Ravens melting through
2,
the Valkyries.
3.
And VaporishCoast still alive. Angry dodges the snipes, and the Agni lives on. Mifflin, we've talked about SEC that can beat the SPL. We've talked about Hex Mambo. We have talked about the Eldritch Hounds. Don't you dare forget the Highland Ravens. They will send home the Valhalla Valkyries.
They're low.
And the Highland Ravens on the verge of one set away from going to Worlds, but BennyQ's got it all to do. And I'm not sure he's got the damage to do it. Adapting, and the Ravens, they've grouped on the Titan. They've got the damage, and they will move on to Sunday.
A heartbreaking finish for the Valhalla Valkyries, but a dominant win for the Highland Ravens. The energy electric, the gameplay clean. These boys looking like doctors, clinical wins here. Absolutely ridiculous. I can't tell you what's going through the Valkyries' heads on these initiations. Every single time, all you need to do is just wait for the Highland Ravens to step to you, fight in your own Phoenix, fight in your own base. But instead, every time anybody's in range, the Valkyries run it down and they get shut down.
Mifflin, the SEC is going to Worlds. One way or another, we will have a minor league team at the SMITE World Championships. Look, congrats to the Valks on what was a fun year to watch for their team. Plenty of ups and downs, really strung some wins together, a bit of momentum there towards the end of Phase 3 of the SPL. But couldn't get it done here this weekend, and so you have to turn your eyes towards who have done well. The Eldritch Hounds, who knocked the Valkyries down to this round. The Highland Ravens, who play one of the cleanest sets of Smite we've seen so
Very
far
clean
this weekend against the Valhalla Valkyries. And so now the Ravens move on to Sunday. They await the loser of the other game in this group. And that match on Sunday will be for a spot at the SMITE World Championships. They've earned it. And they earned it really well here against the Valhalla Valkyries. What a game, what a win for the Highland Ravens. That's it from Miff and I. The desk will break it down.
Yeah, thank you so much. Highland Ravens, the first team to find an elimination match win so far here in the second day of the SWC group stages, knocking out the Valhalla Valkyries. Remember, we had 4 SPL teams, 4 SCC teams, and 4 spots for the SMITE World Championship up to grabs. And I don't think anybody was predicting that it'd be an SPL team to drop first from this event, and at the hands of 2 SCC teams to do it there. The Ravens get the knockout win. The Eldritch Hounds sent the Valkyries to this position. Game 1 and Game 2, very similar, Trelly. Down a position across the map for the Highland Ravens to find this win.
Yeah, it was just clinical. I mean, it seemed like right from the start, Adapting probably called out, hey, they have 2 members without beads. Let's just focus them in the early because we have Hunbats. We've got so much CC. It worked out. They got that small lead, and what the Ravens did really well the entirety of this set was turn their small leads to big leads. They knew where their leads were. Like, hey, we can invade buffs now, and they did not let it drop for a second. Just dominance throughout the entirety of the map. Gotta give shouts out to the entirety of the team. I'm not even gonna single them out. Every single Raven, I think, did their job, and they did it really well.
And I gotta re-emphasize this, and we can even talk more on this as the weekend goes to this team. They're playing with a sub in their support role. Silence normally the support for this team, but Cozyx is slotted in really well for this squad. Angry's not even playing here. He's playing from home right now in his dominating at that same point.
Oh, yeah.
A big win for the Ravens, and we got a big man to talk to right after for this post-game interview. We got VaporishCoast standing by with Dave.
Yeah, who else but Coast, right? I mean, my goodness, what a set from you guys. I want to start right where the desk left off there. First of all, the dual lane, playing with Cozyx here this weekend. Feels like it's been just fine. Have there been any bumps in the road, or is it all smooth sailing for you guys in duo?
The first week of scrims was really rough, but I think we sat down, we reviewed games, and since then, I think it's been the best thing that's happened to us. Like, no disrespect to Jake, but because it's helped me so much, like, laning is just so easy. I think we dominate everyone, so.
Look, it looked easy for you today, honestly. I mean, in game 1, you solo Wowy, and then I think it's Gamma tries to taunt you in, and you simply turn around and kill him off. What was working so well for you specifically today? Do you feel like you're just playing with a bit of confidence that caught them off guard, or you just built different?
I'm just built different, but I'll always play the same. I don't care about my opponents. I want to play aggressive, I want to be in. And I think Cos helps enable that, but I think I'm better than anyone I play, so I'm not really scared. I'll always keep running it down.
Well, look, no matter what, an SEC team from this group is going to Worlds now, whether it's you guys, whether it's the Eldritch Hounds. You'll play on Sunday against the team that loses between Titans and Hounds. Does it feel more real to you now? One set away, one best of 5 from going to Worlds. Is that something you've taken a moment to think about, or maybe it'll hit on Sunday?
Yeah, it's very surreal to even think about, like, comparing to where I was last year. Like, the progress I made over the years is, like, really impressive, but we can't get ahead of ourselves despite how good we played today. We've got to focus up, watch the set, and take notes.
Good way to be. Hey, congrats on the win. It was a lot of fun to watch. Back to the desk to finish this one off.
And like I said there, still got to focus up because they're not at Worlds just yet. The Highland Ravens are just one step closer there. A single best of 5 on Sunday, awaiting the loser of the top side of the bracket in their group to see who they'll face off. Will it be an SCC versus SCC matchup? Will it be another SPL versus SCC? Potentially could be seeing 2 SCC teams from this group even make it through there. And if the Ravens are playing to this degree, feels like it could be either of those opponents that they face off against. It could look just as good, Charlie.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'm a really big fan of that mindset that Coast has. And it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to show it with play on field. Coast really does believe he's the best ADC in the world. Every single time he plays, whether he wins or loses, he plays with confidence. He runs up, he tries to take those 1v1s. Don't get me wrong, sometimes he's proven wrong, sometimes he gets humbled. But in this situation, when you're dashing in like this, I think he always plays with a chip on his shoulder. And it shows in the gameplay, man. Such a fun team to watch in general. And I got to imagine they're going to do exactly what he said. Go back, watch this game over, take some notes, and just get prepped for Sunday. They want Worlds, and they are hungry.
This is also a game that not only was won just off the great gameplay by the Highland Ravens, but a great punishing of the mistakes of the Valhalla Valkyries. So many moments where we sat back and watched and went, well, why is this player up here? Why did this person going ahead of everybody else? Why is this Valkyrie standing where they are at the moment? And the Highland Ravens punished every opportunity of it, whether it be BennyQ stepping too far forward, whether it be Kyrmi initiating ahead of his squad, whether it be Gamma or Wowy or Aqua just being caught out of position. Highland Ravens are able to make that punishment. 6-1 for adapting, 3-0 for Angry to finish this one, and then 2-0 for VaporishCoast to end this set out. A 2-0 convincing win for the EU SCC to knock out our first team on this Elimination Friday. We still have one more set to go after this to see if we're going to be sending potentially guaranteed 2 SCC teams to the SMITE World Championship. It all come down to at least if if the Solar Scarabs can still continue to step back up against Schwalbe Stormer. Do we see an upset there? But Highland Ravens, huge props to them. This is the step that this team needed for this event.
Yeah, whatever Hindu's writing in the script is a little bit crazy because
it's spicy.
Yeah, it's going to be a spicy one, no doubt. And I can't wait to continue. I just want to get into the next matchup already.
Well, before we get into that matchup, we will take a look at the brackets to see what the rest of the weekend pans out for some of these squads. With a loss here for the Valhalla Valkyries, they are done. No more chances for them for the SMITE World Championship as the Highland Ravens find the 2-0. They will await the loser of the Tartarus Titans and Eldritch Hounds. Well, we will guarantee one SCC team will punch their ticket to the SMITE World Championship. Always the option of maybe even 2 of them, depending on how these teams can perform up against the Tartarus Titans. Eldritch Hounds will face off against them. I believe that'll be our first match tomorrow. And it'll be best of 5s. After today, all of our matchups will be best of 5 rounds to see who's going to be qualifying in. Now we can take a look over at Group B, where our next match of the day is going to be taking place. Schwalbe Storm versus Solar Scarabs, a 2-1 matchup that Hex Mambo were able to find the win in earlier on just today. That was our first set of the day, and now we jump in to set number 3 with one more chance for an SCC upset. Can the Solar Scarabs bring themselves back together and find the win, or the Shibaba Storm going to cause some commotion amongst this side of the group as well? And then Oni Warriors and Hex Mamba, that'll be another set that we play out tomorrow as well to see which of those two will be the first ones to qualify to the SWC through their group. But with one more set to go, one more best of 3, and one more elimination match, the stakes are at an all-time high for these teams, Trelly.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Shibaba Storm got a little bit of extra confidence after watching that, right? The SCC punching back, that must, rile them up. And also, as you were talking about, the Solar Scarabs also need to have that bounce back. So mental's going to be at an all-time high. I'm excited. Let's just jump into it.
One final best of 3, one more elimination for today. Can the Shibaba Storm keep the SCC surge running, or the Solar Scarabs going to shut that one down? That set's coming up right after this break.